Welcome to Annunciation of the Lord. It's Wednesday night. It's 8:30, a little bit late, and it's time for the pastor's chat. So normally I come on 8 o'clock. This is something I've been doing for a while now. It's just a chance to talk about things that are going on in the parish, going on in the world, and just making a way to connect with parishioners. And the idea being, I can listen in, get some news, or maybe ask a question. It's live feeds. You can either make a comment. I usually do try to check just to see if anyone makes comments. If there's something you'd like me to talk about, I can try to do that as well. I don't promise it, but I'll try. So there we are. What's going on? So the reason I'm a bit late is I had a couple in for marriage papers. I've always kind of enjoyed that. It's kind of fun. It's just I know them quite well, both, which is really nice. And just filling out forms, and it's just that first next step. Like I knew about this, and we've made plans. We've already kind of booked things, and it's just that first kind of formal step when you fill out. It's called Form 1s, and we start to talk about things, and and just the freedom to marry, and it's just a nice step, and it's a joy to be a part of it. So it puts it a little bit late, and this week I'm preaching, so that's what I thought I'd talk about. It wasn't so much about why I was a bit late, but again, we are in that fall season, which it's going to get colder. We're getting heavy frost now, and Halloween and All Saints, All Souls is coming up, and it's a bit of an issue for us because we've had the last 3 or 4 years we've done a pretty substantial outreach. The last 3 years, I think, and we do quite well. People donate a lot of candy, and we hand it out, but it's mostly getting us out onto the street, right at the front, and there's 1,000 people walk by, I'm sure, on Halloween, and we make a presence. Like, people know who we are. We serve hot chocolate and popcorn and the treats that people have given us. Well, it's supposed to pour rain. We've had the last 3 years have been beautiful nights. Like, 1 year was a little cold, but all of them have been nice nights. And then this year it's going to rain hard in a year that we've had almost no rain. So I don't know we're not quite sure what we're going to do. We're still trying to figure that out. But anyway, we'll figure that out. And then All Saints and All Souls, we'll celebrate those two. And it's a bit different this year because it falls on a Sunday. I don't remember this happening. I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago. It seems like they've changed the rules a bit because usually Sunday Mass kind of takes precedence. So if there's a feast day, they'll either move it or just gets subsumed into the Sunday. And the odd exception is like the Sacred Heart or something, Precious Blood, something that is related specifically to Christ. That morphed into the Sunday Mass, but it just seems like we've had a few things now that have part of Sunday now. Now, it's not bad that we celebrate them on Sunday, but it changes how we celebrate, because all Souls, All Saints, All Saints, All Souls, we used to always have a memorial mass for all the funerals for the people we celebrated here in the parish, and also for even just parishioners who've lost people this year, or even just want to remember somebody in the past. And it's just another chance to remember those that have gone by. Some parishes have special masses in if they have a graveyard that's close by, would say Mass in the graveyard, or have a special night where people can remember. But our tradition is to do this at this time, and Paul Cudahy's been behind this for a long time. And Paul often organizes it. And Janet's going to have a bit of a reception, and we're going to do it on the Sunday night. It just seemed to make the most sense. So we'll obviously pray for that at the Prayers of the Faithful during Mass, at all the Masses on the weekend. But specifically on the 6 o'clock Sunday night Mass, we've invited people to join us. Maybe people who live in other parts of the province, or possibly people who don't always come to church all the time, whatever. But we'll just remind that we are going to pray for your family, and you're most welcome to join us that night. And we'll do some of the elements. We'll light the candles, like we often do at the beginning, like for someone. And again, I'm including like my mom, like for Barbara Arsenault. Like, I'll be lighting a candle as well for my parents, but particularly for my mom this year, who passed in the springtime. And at the end, we'll have the scrolling of all the names. I think we're up to 120 or so names. So again, of various people who have died and connected to the parish. And then preaching, and now I haven't quite got the homily together yet, but usually by Wednesday, I like to have the core ideas of what I want to talk about. And what I was thinking about is an interesting thing that happened actually last week. We had a number of baptisms, like a lot. We had 6, and then one more at Mass, a 7th. So 7 baptisms, 3 more this weekend. So that's 10 children being baptized just in the course of a week, which is wonderful, wonderful thing. But at the same time, we had a long-time parishioner, Tess Sturgeon, who'd been. It's a very interesting story. Tess was kind of the last, almost of the Victorian era, What I mean by that, I mean, I'm sorry, that's a bit grandiose to say that, but, in Tess' personal life, but she was actually born in India, but her father was a bureaucrat. He's English, he's British, and her mother. And so they had been sent to India to do, part of the British really presence there. It was a bit more than that, actually. It's part of empire and Commonwealth and all that. And she was born there, and it was her childhood was spent in India. And then she returned, I believe, just before or during the war. And then after the Second World War, she migrated really on her own. God bless her. She's like 21 or 22 to Canada. I got a job in the Canadian government, and eventually her sister and her mother came over as well, and they all lived here. But Tess lived very old age. She would have turned 99. I think her funeral's going to be next week on what would have been her 99th birthday. Now I think if Tess knew I was telling you all this, she'd be. She was very feisty. She still when I first came here, she was still driving. God bless her, and well into her at that point it'd be early 90s, I think. And so I don't think she actually looked very much. She just kind of drove and never, as far as I know, never got in an accident, praise God. But it was really time for that. And I think, and then she's been in a nursing home for the last probably 4, 5, 6 years now. But she passed, and she's home now. And those two things for me are kind of linked. Like for those children, we were baptizing them into the faith. And then for Tess, we're celebrating the fulfillment of that. And it's not very many people, like you kind of go to a baptism or you go to a funeral. Only clergy really, I think, could do both in the same day. And I've literally had to do that a few times where I'm celebrating a funeral or, very close to a baptism. And in the baptism rite, it says, you are baptized into the death of Christ that you might rise with him. And when you celebrate a funeral, one of the prayers, and with Tess, she has a casket, so we'll say this prayer. On the day of her baptism, back in India, on the other side of the world, 99 years ago, right? It's almost 100 years, a promise was made to Tess that although death would have a word, it would not have the final word. This is what we believe. This is what we don't hold to be true. And so what I want to talk about in my homily this weekend, it's going to be the, unless a grain of wheat is sown, it remains a single grain. But if it is sown, it dies, but it produces, that's how wheat works. So you sow the seed germinates and then becomes a stalk and then more seed, and it multiplies. So unless it does that, it really never reaches its potential. And the whole point then of our lives is to go to eternity. Like, again, I'm just still working on it in my mind, like how I'm going to say this. I have to be kind of delicate with this, and there are deaths, again, a loss of children or accidents that happen, and it's very, very hard. And I don't mean to take away from any of that. And then again, some stories of people get cancer or, and I got even an older age, to watch my mother decline in her last years. And she was always, I think, pretty happy where she was, but she was just starting to get a little bit angsty about not remembering who we were. She always did remember us, thank God, but just kind of dreading that day when I come to see her and she's not sure who I am or gets lost in a conversation. That would have been hard. But the whole point wasn't so much that we live here, it's that we live in eternity. And this is all a means to an end. And even if the great miracles happen and people are cured, they're going to eventually die of something. We all are going to die of something. It's that, again, going back to Ash Wednesday, remember you are dust, and to dust you shall return. And that's a problem, but Easter is a solution in the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And so as we move into this, again, this boding, this late autumn into early winter, getting ready for Advent, the coming of light into the world, celebrated at Christmas time in the birth of Jesus, it has that feel to it. All the readings have this, and I always say this every year, and you feel it. Like you literally feel it as we get frost and the leaves have kind of turned. And this year, I think with the lack of rain, it seems a little bit dull this year, but I think we're past peak. It's not just beautiful or touching it. No, we're getting bare branches now, and probably this storm, once the leaves get wet and come off the trees, it's going to happen fairly quickly. And then we have 4 months of winter, and it's long and it's bitter. But there'll come a spring, right? That we know that there will come a spring. It could be a late spring, might be a slow spring, but spring will come again. And in the same way, that yes, death will have a word, just not the final word. The final word is the person of Jesus, and he gets the final word. So my dear friends, we've all lost people we love, and I was talking to someone the other day, and it's like you get to a phase of life where you start losing peers and friends, and it's difficult. So what about me? Like, what's next for me? Well, God willing, you have many years, and they're good, and they're full, and you get to travel and be with friends and do all the good things of life, and to see your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, But one day, this will happen. And see, there's only two ways it ends. Like, Jesus comes to us or we go to him. And for the vast majority of us, probably we're going to go to him. Are we ready? I was joking today, if you caught the mass, I was talking about snow tires. Like, literally, like, it's 500,000 vehicles, 4 tires each. That's 2 million tires have to switch over for snow tires, which is another 2 million. 4 million tires have to get put on or taken off every year. And it seems almost overwhelming. But somehow it all gets done. And it's the same thing. There's 7 billion people on this planet, and we're all facing the same timelines. And linear time is the same for all of us. And the young maybe can avoid it, but as you get to a certain, the wrong side of 50, it's like, okay, this is the next thing. And it's all right. I remember my grandmother, she was really the first person, my mother's mother, Anne Roy. She died when I was in high school, really. And she was the first person I'd known, really, like, family member, maybe some distant relative, or I'd heard of it, obviously, of death, but where I knew her and had a relationship with her. And she was always very jovial and a lot of fun and loved to laugh and bake. And she would always give us sips of her beer when we were kids, and it was all great. But I remember seeing her, she had bone cancer, and she was quite sick and had gotten very, thin and frail. And I didn't know what to do. I just hugged her, and she said, don't be sad. I had a good life. I'm going home now. We'll be together again. And I just always have hung on to that. That was that idea. It's the final prayer you say at the funeral. We will be together again when the love of Christ, which conquers all things, destroys even death itself. That's the good news. Nobody gets out of this alive. That's the way it is. I said, Blessed Mother, but that's all. But the rest of us will face this. But God willing, we won't face it alone, and it won't get the final word. It'll be sad. Of course it'll be sad. But it doesn't have to be forever. Only God's forever. So, my dear friends, continue to be blessed. Enjoy these last few days of maybe cooler weather, but not necessarily cold weather. Let's pray. Let's live good lives. Let's be the people we're being called to be. And let's not be afraid. Let's not be afraid. We will be together again when the love of Christ, which conquers all things, destroys even death itself. May God bless you now. Mother Mary intercede for you, and saints and angels pray for you. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.